Hello internet friends, my name is Catherine and I'm the human behind Christian Miss Couture, and today is another Color Wheel Monday, the series in which I make my way through color theory one color at a time. And today is the last episode with Deep Magenta, and we're going to do the Deep Magenta fade, so going from 0.05% depth of shade up to 1% of depth of shade. And we're also going to do the gradient with adding the True Black from 0.05% depth of shade of True Black up to 1% depth of shade of True Black mixed with our 1% depth of shade of Deep Magenta. So that way we can see the full experience and a full grade of color and range of color we can get with those two colors, which are part of Dharma Trading Co. Starter Pack. So one of the reasons I'm using those specific colors is because they are part of the Starter Pack you can purchase from Dharma Trading Co. So without further ado, let's get into this. And we're back with another Color Wheel Monday, the series in which I make my way through color theory one color at a time. And today we are going to do our gradient with Deep Magenta. So we're going to go from 0.05% depth of shade of Deep Magenta up to 1%, and we're going to be also doing a fade back with the True Black. That was not on the right side, so you can possibly read that properly. So we're going to zero out our container here, and then what we're going to do before opening any jar, we're going to grab our respirator. It doesn't have to be this specific brand, but you need to make sure that it is a filter that will catch any fine particles, because we do not want to breathe any of those fine particles. This is what is dangerous with the acid dyes for your health. It's breathing it in. So because we only have one pair of lungs and we need to protect them. Okay, let's do this, people. So we're going to start with our Deep Magenta. We're going to measure 1 gram of dry powder because we're doing it in 1% depth of shade for the stock solution. So it's 1 gram of the dry powder for 100 milliliter of water. So we just need to do this carefully. And you always want to make sure that your scale is at 0 before adding anything into your container. There we go. So we are at 1 for the Deep Magenta. So now we're going to do our True Black. So once again, make sure that your scale is at 0 before adding anything in it. Okay, so we are going to need a tiny bit. We don't need that much. There we go. Almost on the first try. So we don't need this scale anymore, and we're going to be adding our water in it. And we only need 100 milliliter of water. And now that our dry powder is no longer in dry powder form, we can remove our respirator. So it's really when your pigment is in the dry form that it is mandatory to wear a respirator or a mask, anything that can prevent you from breathing in those fine particles. And also a reminder that we are only using containers, spoons, jars. Anything that we are using is 100% dedicated to dyeing yarn with citric acid and acid dye. And I made a mess once again because we don't want to do a cross-contamination with our food. So if you're going to be dyeing yarn, it must be with things that will only be used to dye yarn or anything that you want to dye in general. So we're going to go grab our mason jars. Okay, so now we're going to be adding our dyes. So from over there, it's going to be 0.05% depth of shade. Here we're going to have 0.10% depth of shade. 0.25% depth of shade, 0.5%, 0.75. There's going to be 1% depth of shade in this one. However, we're also going to start adding the true black in that one, and then it's going to be point all of those will be 1% depth of shade of our deep magenta, and we're going to slow down, like reduce the amount of dye for the true black. So that one will be 0.75% true black. This one will be 0.5, 0.25, 0.10, and 0.05% depth of shade of true black. So this is what we are going to do. And here in this, we only have tap water, and there's roughly 400 milliliter in here for that. And there's no citric acid as of right now in any of the jars, because we want to give a good chance for the color to penetrate evenly on the skeins of our yarn that has been pre-soaking since a few days. Not gonna lie, I did forget what I was doing and then I did not do this for a little while. So there's that, but that's fine. So we're now in the 10 milliliter of our 1% depth of shade. So why am I adding 10 milliliter? Is because we have 10 gram mini skeins. So if I want to have 1% depth of shade for deep magenta on my 10 gram mini skeins, I will need 10 milliliter of my 1% stock solution. This is also one of the reasons I love the metric system. It's because it's easy to remember and to do the math for this. So we're just gonna go from the other side to add these. So we're going to have a super lovely fade of deep magenta for this experiment. I'm very excited because it's always, I really like doing this particular fade when we are working our color theory. So yeah, so we want to give a good chance for the color to penetrate properly. So this is why we don't have any citric acid and that we don't have any heat applied as of right now. So perfect. So we've got the dye properly, so we can grab our mini skeins. And they are 100% superwash merino. They're the Swish from Knitpick. There will be a link in the description box if you're interested in grabbing 10 gram mini skeins. I'm not going to lie to you, I'm not a big fan of the Swish one. I prefer the Stroll fingering. Which is a 75-25% merino nylon, and this is just personal opinion. I don't like the length of the mini skeins for the Swish. I prefer the length for the fingering Stroll from Knitpick. So this is 100% just personal opinion. So, and also every time that the only reason I'm using the Swish is because I ordered them by accident. I wanted to order the fingering Stroll, but I clicked on the wrong thing in my stuff, and then I got almost 100 of those mini skeins, so I'm just trying to get rid of them by using them and giving them away to some of my friends that also knit and crochet, so there's that. Yes, so this is just personal preference. As soon as I'm done with those, I will go back to the Stroll. I just also feel that like the Stroll ones are a little bit more, how can I say, versatile, because you can use them for socks if you want. You know what? I think I reversed the the order. Well, it's not. It doesn't really matter at this point. Like I think I should have done like this shouldn't have been like the 1% point. This one should have been the 1% point. But like that's fine, right? It's going to do the same thing. I'm just going when I'm going to show you the final result. I'll just put those ones in the other way around. So that's kind of funny. I didn't think about that properly. I think. So this is actually pretty funny. Oh yeah, I understand why I didn't think properly. It's because usually when we're doing this experiment with other colors, we don't have the same color, like the same depth of shade. Like it's a different one usually on that side, if it makes sense. Like normally we would have had 1% depth of shade of the true black in all of those ones. But we know that this is not what we should be doing for this specific experiment. I was just too in my head. That's my bad. Sorry about that, friend. It's fine. Like, everything will be fine. So, anyways, we are doing the up and down in the jars to open up the mini skeins. So that way we have um, less natural resistance in the jar, and you open up the skeins. So you should ideally have a little bit more a little bit more control where the color is going to go, and you're going to have a little bit more of an even an even dye. So when you're doing tonals, you're usually we try to have as much as possible an even coverage so that you don't have too much white patches, because the more resistance you have, the more risk you have of white patches. And this is also why I do a pre-soak at least 30 minutes ideally the night before, to ensure that you have an even coverage, because when it is dry, it is another natural resistance because there is lanolin in there, where when you're pre-soaking, it helps remove a little bit of that natural lanolin. So all of that fun stuff to help you to achieve the most even coverage as possible. So we're going to go into the double boiler. Let's see you there. Okay, so we're going to turn on the heat right now so that we can give a good chance to the water to reach the right temperature, because we need the water to be between 85 to 95 Celsius for the color to properly strike the yarn. So there is still no citric acid as of right now in there. I like to wait for to add that before the water starts to be a little bit more warmer, so it will help for the yarn to equally receive the dye, so we will have a better coverage, a more even coverage, less risk of having white patches over here. So we're going to see each other in 10 minutes when I'm adding the citric acid. Okay, let's add our citric acid now. So the water is not quite where we want it to be for the color to properly strike. So what we're going to do is we're going to wait for the water to reach between 85 to 95 Celsius, and then when we have that temperature, we're going to do a 30 minutes countdown for the cooking time, basically. So we're just going to quickly mix. So once we've reached the right temperature, it's 30 minutes of cooking time. And from there, and once we've reached the 30 minutes, we are going to let it completely cool off before washing off any excess dye, because we know we will have some color in the water because we're using deep magenta. So this is always a good idea to prepare yourself mentally. Alrighty, and there we go. So I will see you later. Okay, let's take a peek. And besides the usual color we have here, we are good to go. So I'm going to turn off the heat and we're going to let it completely cool off before we're going to be washing off any excess dye. And after that, we're going to let it dry overnight and I will see you later for the wash off. Bye. And now we are going to be washing off any excess dye. You can already see the excess going over in the bath, which is to be expected because it's deep magenta and we don't trust her. Okay, so we're just going to let this soak for like 10-15 minutes and I'm gonna be back for that. And we're just going to quickly look at those jars and you can see that comparing the two sides, the sides with the true black, it's like the true black helped the deep magenta to properly, like, to completely be cleared off from this. So what I'm expecting to see is definitely a lot more color than usual in the bath where we are soaking the smoothie stains. So that's what I'm expecting, a lot more color over there. But we'll go and see what's up with. Okay, let's take a look. Where are my zip ties? Where? Okay. Oh, we have one down. And as you can see, it is a lot darker than what we usually have, which I was expecting since we had clear bath with the true black ones. So I was expecting a lot of color in this bath. Okay, so we're going to add more water and we're going to do a second soak for this. Okay, so we're going to let this soak and we're going to come back. Okay. We should be good with this one, I believe. Okay. And it's at the time. Oh, yeah. That's good. So what we're going to do is we're going to put this in the spin dryer and let it dry overnight. And I will see you tomorrow for the final results. Bye. And here's the final result for our fade and the also adding the true black to our deep magenta. And you can see that in the middle we get purple colors, and even here it's like a darker purple shade. So if you are wanting to do a like a purple with more neutral colors, I would highly recommend adding a little bit of true black into your mix, so that way you don't have a color that will be warm or that will be cold. It will definitely be more onto the neutral, especially when you compare to like a purple like this, where we have blue undertones, which means that it is more on the cool side of the spectrum of colors that we could reach. So this is something to keep in mind when you are mixing your own colors or experimenting with colors in general. So it does give really beautiful results, and I hope you've liked it. So like those shades of purple are definitely more in my personal favorite color palette. So hope that I have some friends out there. And if you've liked the video, please consider sharing, liking, and subscribing, and I will see you next one very soon. Bye!